It is a historic day in the world of professional wrestling. Vince McMahon has announced publicly via tweet that he has retired from WWE. About an hour and a half ago, Vince tweets out this, I quote, "At 77, time for me to retire. Thank you, WWE Universe, then, now, forever, together. Hashtag WWE, hashtag thankful." And there it is. What have I been saying since day one of this scandal? I said there's something different this time. This feels like a bullet that Vince McMahon cannot dodge. It doesn't matter what his personality is like. It doesn't matter if it's consensual. It doesn't matter if it's his own money. NDAs are not alleged. It felt like a lot of people didn't quite truly understand how royally fucked he was, to the point where I don't even think Vince McMahon understood it, because he was parading his ass out on TV several times like a defiant asshole. Well, the other shoe was dropped, and maybe before things get too bad, like I mentioned in my last podcast, that at what point do they want to stop the bleeding with Vince McMahon? Because the more they investigate, the more they're going to uncover, and that's when you can be a liability to your company in terms of financials, because they've got TV deals coming up. They've got lots of money and negotiations that they need to be doing on a daily basis, and when you have a corrupt or disgraced sitting CEO, that's going to deter people from potentially doing business with you. And there are some things that you're not going to be able to avoid. And when it's clearly written in your employment agreements and all of the policies in the company of what executives can and cannot do, it's very clear. I mean, unless you've never read a book in your life, I don't understand how you would look at the situation and think Vince is going to be fine. He ain't going to be fine. And we have now seen that he has been essentially probably pushed out of his own company. He is probably retiring, so he does not have to be pushed out. This happens all the time. You see CEOs of a lot of top companies and, even sports teams and stuff like that resign or retire in lieu of actually being fired or pushed out. This gives Vince McMahon an option to leave on his own terms and retire his way, even though it's probably not the way he wanted. I think Vince McMahon always felt, and so did we, that he would die sitting right at Gorilla. And now that Vince McMahon and a lot of the wrestling world are finding out that actions have consequences, shockaroo, Vince McMahon is now gone. Raise your hand if you've been alive before and after Vince was the WWE owner. Unbelievable. 40 years ago this year, Vince bought the company from Vince Sr., I believe in 1982. And here we are at age 77, and Vince is now no longer the head of WWE. And we're going to talk about as much as I can here. I'm kind of breaking my own rule. I never rush right up to YouTube to make a video right away, but I'm in the middle of my busiest weekend of the year at work. I was already going to make an announcement later today that I'm pushing tomorrow's Winged Eagle podcast to Sunday, because I don't have enough time to get together and get enough information together to run a whole podcast tomorrow. So I was already going to do that. So once the Vince McMahon story broke, I'm like, I cannot wait until Sunday to talk about this. I'll come up here right now. We'll talk about as much as we can, but a lot of this is just going to be me rambling, us shooting the shit, speculating, talking about what Vince's future is, what the WWE future is, what the fuck is going on SmackDown right now, because apparently Brock Lesnar has walked out. Shit is unraveling. SummerSlam, the main event, could be in jeopardy now. We'll talk about all of that, but like I said, I don't have a whole lot of information other than what we've just gotten in the last hour. So usually YouTubers scramble right to YouTube to start talking about shit before they have any information. I usually like to wait a little bit on that, but I don't really have that option this weekend since I'm so busy. So we got to talk about as much as we can now, and then I will elaborate likely a lot more on Sunday when we probably learn a lot more fallout, more backstage reaction, and a lot of information I'm sure will come in the next 24 and 48 hours. And as a matter of fact, SmackDown goes live in 2.5 hours, less than 2.5 hours. So there's a lot going on in WWE. It has got to be an absolute nut house backstage at SmackDown. I don't know if Vince McMahon is even there. I don't believe he is. But there is also a company-wide meeting taking place today, probably right around now, that's also happening. So we will get a lot of information as the day progresses, as we get into tomorrow and we get into Sunday. But it is truly a historic day. Vince McMahon officially out as head of WWE. He will not remain as head of creative from what we understand, although I don't think that's confirmed. But I believe if Vince is retiring, he is truly retiring. I don't think Vince would ever want to have a boss in WWE. He's never known any other way, and if he can't be full-blown, be the Vince he wants to be that's in charge of everything, then he probably doesn't want to do it at all. So it is going to be interesting to see what Vince McMahon now does with his life. This is a man that's worked 20-hour days, 7 days a week, for 40 plus years. You don't just turn that off and the next day, just wake up and at 10 o'clock in the morning, put your bathrobe on, eat some cornflakes, watch some game shows. You just don't make that transition overnight. So, what is Vince going to do? Is Vince going to start a podcast? Is Vince going to go on podcasts? Is he going to, do as many interviews as he can to try to, clear his name as best possible or improve the public's image of him? What the hell is he going to do? Or is he just going to, kind of bow out and lay low and just stay out of the limelight altogether? There's no telling. This is a very surreal day. Very surreal. I mean, I knew based on the allegations against Vince McMahon and what the investigation was uncovering, I knew it was going to be gnarly. I knew that he's probably going to get forced out, but I really, truly wasn't going to believe it until it happened. Because in my mind, no matter how many times I said it, Vince is not going to be the head of WWE for very much longer. He survived a lot. So even though I truly believed in my heart of hearts he was gone and would be gone in a very short amount of time, I kind of predicted this would happen after SummerSlam. It happened a week before. And I thought that would kind of happen later, but I knew deep down it was going to happen. But it's still no less shocking. I'm sitting here reading my own headline on my video, Vince McMahon retires from WWE. That's not a video I ever expected to make. I expected to make a video, Vince McMahon passes away video one day, but that's still 20 years in the future. So the fact that we're sitting here talking about this and Vince is out of WWE is quite incredible and just fucking surreal. So let's talk about what we know. I said Vince McMahon tweeted out about an hour and a half that he was retiring from WWE. There was also news today that Triple H has resumed his role as VP of Talent Relations. Bruce Pritchard is now no longer going to be in that interim role. He's going to go back to the head of creative. And, of course, John Laurinaitis, if Vince McMahon is out, John Laurinaitis damn sure is out. And I don't think anybody expects to ever see him back in the company either. There's a lot of shifting and moving around going on currently as we speak internally in WWE, regarding Stephanie and Triple H and Bruce and where everybody is going to fit in. I'm very happy that Triple H is back to an executive role because I always thought Triple H was really good for the company. So, we always assumed as fans that Stephanie and Triple H would assume the role of Vince McMahon, but that doesn't appear to be the case. Stephanie is now the CEO. Triple H has got a big job, and maybe Stephanie and Triple H will, be the modern-day Vince and Linda. But, at the same time, you have to wonder truly about WWE's future and who, and if they are going to just position the company and sell it outright, because it feels like now, without Vince at the top, we're about to enter into a very strange chapter in WWE's history. Somebody like me who's nearly 45 years old, my entire life is like this version of WWE. So to imagine it being different is still really hard for me to kind of wrap my head around. But there could be more turmoil in WWE. Brian Alvarez had sent out a couple of tweets. One was pretty simple that just said Brock Lesnar has left SmackDown. He's heard from sources that Brock Lesnar has left SmackDown. Followed it up with another tweet about a half an hour ago that says Brock Lesnar has left SmackDown, and he said some sort of derivative of, if he's gone, I'm gone. Now, this is all just reported by Alvarez, so grain of salt that shit. But if Brock Lesnar really, truly is pissed that Vince McMahon is gone, Brock Lesnar has had outbursts before. Brock Lesnar has no problem just doing whatever the fuck he wants and fuck everybody else and the tickets that are sold and the fans who paid to see him. He doesn't care. And he is kind of a hothead. He's gotten pissed before. So now apparently, according to the reports, Brock Lesnar might be mad that Vince McMahon is retiring and now Brock Lesnar wants to leave. Could you imagine 1 week before SummerSlam, you lose your main event? I even said a couple of weeks ago, didn't I? In the last podcast, I said if Vince is going to retire, they should probably get through SummerSlam first. When things get a little slower, then you're going to get into the fall. I know they got Castlevania coming up. That's a big, excuse me, that's a big show. But if they got on the other side of SummerSlam and just got that done and then make an announcement the following week, that's kind of what I thought they were going to do. But here, yet again, they dropped major news right before they're about to go live on the air on Fox. And, of course, they've got a main event now at SummerSlam that could be in jeopardy. So that's all very interesting. Let me read you this article from Fightful Select real quick, and then I'll go over here to the chat and see what you guys have to say. But Fightful Select dropped this article just a little while ago, and I quote, Vince McMahon retires, backstage news. Vince McMahon announces retirement at 4:05 p.m. Eastern, saying what I just said earlier on. in terms of the tweet, Fightful has been told there is an all-hands-on-deck meeting at 5 p.m. Eastern. So that meeting is either going on right now or just ending right now. We'd reported earlier today that the new EVP of Talent Relations, CEO Stephanie McMahon, and President Nick Khan were all set to be in Boston, the site of SmackDown. A mass message went out to those within WWE from Vince McMahon announcing the news. There have been heavy moves made within WWE, and we're told to expect more. One talent immediately contacted us and said quote, they'll believe it once shows come and go and he's no longer involved, end quote. Another, upon hearing the news, said that they were surprised as they expected Vince McMahon to be with the company until he dies. We will constantly update this article this evening with additional news. Then there is an additional update here. We're told that the meeting is a company-wide Zoom meeting at 5 p.m. So like I said, that's going on right now. And finally, WWE sources have indicated that Vince McMahon will also no longer be head of creative. There were immediate internal rumors that Brock Lesnar was, quote, very pissed off about the news and left, as Brian Alvarez reported. We have also heard this rumor. So there is some shit floating around out there in terms of what's going on internally. There's still some wrestlers that are still of the belief that they'll believe it when they see it. But why would Vince tweet that out? You know, to me, it's kind of been a no-brainer the whole time. But like I said, does not make it any less shocking. Let me read this little, because I'm just kind of going with the flow here because I don't have a whole lot written down. According to Brandon Ross of Lightshed and Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics, Vince McMahon is also leaving his position of head of creative. We know all this already. Yeah, so that's... Yeah, and that's what I said earlier. I figured, Vince is going to retire. He's going to retire from all of it. I don't think he's going to take a lesser position. Vince McMahon does not have a boss. He will die, I think, before he has a boss. So I don't think that's really ever going to be an option for him, nor did I. But, wow, just pretty crazy day. I think, WWE's in a position where when the dust settles from all of this and they, everything just kind of settles, I think the company can run just fine. But this initial blow of Vince McMahon retiring and leaving the company is really going to throw things into disarray, and it's going to get a lot of publicity, and people are going to be talking. Talent is going to be uncomfortable. But I truly believe that WWE is perfectly capable of running itself without that maniac at the helm. I firmly believe they can do it. So it's probably going to be some choppy waters here for a while. But once things smooth out, I think the machine can keep running. They're too big to fold under this type of pressure. They're going to be fine. It's just... they got some damage control to do now. And now if you have one of your top stars that's booked in a title match in a main event of your second biggest pay-per-view of the year in a week, leaving because he's pissed off about this, you got to smooth that shit over too. I can imagine Vince McMahon probably calling Brock himself, Brock, just don't do the fucking pay-per-view. Let Roman beat you. Never have to go back. But you have to wonder now what Vince McMahon's attitude is. Does he still have that love for WWE? Is he going to be on the sidelines, consulting or giving opinions, or is he going to care, or is he bitter and mad and he doesn't give a shit what happens to his company? I don't know. Interesting situation to say the least. Let me go over here and say hi to the chat for the first time since I've been up streaming. By the way, if you guys could do me a favor and smash that thumbs up button for me. Was not expecting to be up here on 2:30 on a Friday afternoon, but when music like this gets handed down, or when news like this gets handed down, you kind of have to. Anywho, let me say hi to everybody who's here. Knock out the super chats. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. Don't have time to shout out everybody, but I do want to hit up Max Pokebra 27 with a thank you and appreciate that $5 earlier. This has been a long time coming. I give Vince credit for the 80s boom and the Attitude Era, but everyone has to be held accountable, especially Vince. I agree totally, because there is, I actually am happy that there's some accountability here. Vince McMahon, in my mind, got what he deserved. But trust me, I don't take any great joy in saying that. Vince McMahon, there was a time in my life where I admired this man greatly. He's going to go down as the most successful wrestling promoter of all time. And when I was young and more impressionable years, like I said, I was in my early 20s during the Attitude Era. I had it made in the shade. And Vince McMahon, his whole persona and his demeanor was tailor-made for that era. I always liked Vince McMahon's no-nonsense attitude, the fact that he fought like hell over everything. When I grow up and as an adult, I kind of look at that behavior and like, what a weird man. But at the time, I kind of thought it was cool. There's no bullshitter. Doesn't take any shit from anybody, does what he wants, but he does a little bit too much of what he wants. And unfortunately, like a lot of extremely rich people, billionaires, CEOs, and people with a great amount of power, 9 times out of 10, they abuse that. And we've seen it so many times at the head of sports teams and the head of, other major companies, of people having to step down for inappropriate behavior or behavior that they feel that they are entitled to. And it blows my mind that there are fans out there that think it's acceptable for Vince McMahon to get oral sex from an employee and then effectively affect that person's career with a demotion or not re-signing them or whatever. And the fact that that is behavior that's acceptable to some is pretty fucking mind-blowing. So you can still have admiration for Vince McMahon for what he did, for all of the entertainment and decades of entertainment that he helped, he didn't do it himself, but he helped supply to the audience. The 80s boom, like you said, the Attitude Era. The Vince McMahon character himself, we really got to know him when Stone Cold Steve Austin became champion, and he became one of the, and probably the best heel in the history of the business because he was a real-life version of himself. And it was over as hell, and he had the best babyface in the world to work with, and it made magic, and it helped, him and Austin together really pushed WWE over the hump there and got him past WCW. That was the angle that did it. So not only was Vince McMahon, as some would say, a genius promoter. I don't know if I'd use the word genius because Vince McMahon has had a crap ton of stupid ideas. I mean, ridiculously stupid ideas. This guy has, he has snatched defeat out of the jaws of victory so many times. He's had gold mines land in his lap and he's pissed it away. There's been plenty of dumb shit that Vince McMahon has done. But the company in general and his vision and how he was able to switch things up in that big move they made in the Attitude Era, knowing that, hey, if we want to compete ratings-wise with these guys, we're really going to have to get nuts. And he knew enough to do that, and he had the balls to make that change. So he does deserve credit for changing with the times when he needed to, but boy, he's lost a lot of that credibility now because I think a lot of people believe and know how truly, unimaginably, jaw-droppingly out of touch Vince McMahon is. And I think he's like that in his real world too, in his real life, because he's lived in that WWE bubble. He has no idea that having sexual relationships with multiple women and then paying them millions of dollars to shut up is bad. He thinks he's entitled to that. He walks around and carries himself in public as if he is never going to be touched. Bulletproof is basically the attitude that he has. As soon as the scandal broke, he went out on SmackDown, came back through the curtain at Gorilla and goes, fuck him. It's not how a rational adult behaves. That's how a madman behaves. So I like that a madman living in an enclosed circle of delusion is finding out how the real world works. It's a beautiful thing. And I can say that while also having deep admiration for Vince. There is a part of me that is very sad today. Absolutely. But it's not my fault I'm sad. This is Vince's own doing. He could easily still be the head of his company right now if he just wasn't a scumbag. He'd still be running WWE right now. All he has to do is keep his jackhammer in his pants around his employees. Too hard for him. Can't do that. So I don't have any fucking sympathy for him. I can't imagine anybody would have sympathy for him. You can still be, somewhat sad and have this real surreal view of Vince no longer being the head of WWE, but you at least have to agree that he deserves the consequences for his actions. I don't really see any other way around it than that. So that's kind of the way I feel. But Max, I kind of agree with you wholeheartedly there on that comment. Joshua Aparicio, appreciate the $2 from you earlier on. I just got out of work. What the fuck? Vince McMahon is all elite. It's pretty awesome. Deshaun Robinson, appreciate the $2 from you. It's a new day. Yes, it is. It is definitely a new day. Wow. End of an era. I totally understand and I agree. Trying to read some of these comments here. There's a million of them. So, We Are Pro Wrestling. Good to see you, my friend. Theory's push is probably going to be put on ice. Possibly. I mean, even all the way up until, I think a week or so ago when he came out, they're like, this has Vince McMahon written all over it. So they're going to have to, what are they going to do there? Theory has got that briefcase. I feel less and less confident that he's going to cash in that thing successfully. However, the WWE wants to shake things up big time and take the focus away from Vince. They might need to drop some crazy fucking balls out angle that's going to have the whole wrestling world forget all about Vince McMahon and instead be pissed off that Theory is champion. It might be a good strategy, believe it or not. Let me see. I don't want to miss any super chats, so I'm scrolling just a little bit slow here because when there's this many comments, I sometimes miss them. Stone Cold 10X, appreciate that $5 earlier on. On the Pat McAfee interview, Brock called Vince a father figure, which shows how close they were. Well, yeah, they've done business for many years. They've had a couple of hiccups in between, but Vince McMahon knows, that's one thing he does know. He knows who brings in the money, and Brock is a huge draw, a huge name, a worldwide recognizable name. Vince is going to take care of that man. And we know the type of contract that Brock is getting. Vince McMahon has been very good to Brock. That's why I never understand why Brock gets so mad. And he threw the belt at Vince McMahon that one time at WrestleMania. This guy works like 5 matches a year and gets paid ridiculous, more than anybody else in the company, working 200-plus matches a year. And he has the easiest schedule, the easiest job, and he gets paid stupid money to do it. So, yeah, he's probably going to be a little bit loyal to Vince, and he should be, because Vince McMahon has paid that man a lot of fucking money. Lex Luger slammed Yokozuna. Yes, he did. That's an awesome comment. Scroll down too far. Stone Cold, I got you. Who's next? We got Chris Miner. Appreciate the $2. Dude, how long do you think things will change creatively? Well, I just talked about that a little while ago, that I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of changes in creative, because who is the head of creative? The other half of Vince McMahon's brain, Bruce Pritchard, is head of creative. And if he's in charge, he thinks like Vince. He's got the same philosophies as Vince. Vince has implanted his own philosophies into the mind of Bruce Pritchard, and he books like Vince. So I don't think shit's going to really change at all. I think, like I said before, Vince McMahon not being a presence there is at least going to provide the company with a little bit of stress relief. Maybe these maniacal 11th hour tear-ups of the script 5 minutes before they go live, where now the writers and the booking team has to scramble to come up with alternatives on the fly. Maybe some of those situations are going to be a little bit less frequent now, and that will allow the creative team to maybe put a little bit more time and thought into storylines, or not have to work with the fear that everything that they write out is going to be torn up by a crazy man. And if I'm a writer and I know that Vince McMahon can tear up a script right before we go live, I'm not going to be really working that hard to write any good shit. Why would I? Why would I bend over backwards to put together what I believe is a solidly booked show, only for this crazy motherfucker to tear up all my work? So at least with him being gone, maybe that will ease things up a bit for the creative team and allow them to operate under less stress. I don't know what kind of jobs you guys have. It ain't fun to work when you're stressed out. And if you can work a little bit more calmly, you can probably think a little bit more clearly and develop stuff a little bit better. So I think Vince McMahon's absence will help those aspects. But I still believe overall, you got Bruce there and you got Kevin Dunn there. These people are Vince McMahon disciples. You're still going to have 6,000 camera cuts every 5 seconds with Kevin Dunn. They're still going to be overly concerned with their 3D renders and their lasers and their production and all of that, without really caring about the substance in their product that's actually on TV. And of course, Bruce, writes the same segments. These are all cookie cutter fucking segments. You're still going to get somebody coming out with the title, "I'm the champion, nobody can beat me." And then somebody comes out, and then somebody else comes out, and somebody else comes out, and then we have 4 people in the ring, and the commissioner comes out, makes a 4-way, the winner gets it. All that shit. None of that stuff's going to change. It's going to be the same type of stuff, I feel like. But I think right now, when things are a little bit choppy, there is going to be a grace period there until things smooth out. But once it does and the dust settles, then I think WWE is a machine and will just continue to run the way it runs. But it's not going to be a smooth transition, because WWE doesn't know any other time without Vince McMahon. There's nobody working in that company, I believe, that worked for Vince Sr. I don't believe there's anybody there at all that was there when Vince's dad was in charge. Stephanie was alive, but she certainly doesn't remember none of that shit. So I think that you can't just expect them to be business as usual by tonight or by Monday. There is going to be a transition period, but once that happens, I think it will even out and things will be relatively back to normal in WWE. Ike Moore, I appreciate the $10 from you, man. Surreal. 2 questions. Do you think Steph has an on-air role again? Also, does this open the door for Sasha and Naomi to return? I don't know. If I'm Stephanie, I'm not doing an on-air role right now. because her presence will just people will compare her to Vince, and I think she should remain behind the scenes right now. There's really no reason to bring her out on TV. We had her as part of the Authority for all those years. I'm not really a big fan of the Adam Pearce thing. I like Adam Pearce. I like him in that role, but the way the role is utilized is way too predictable, and it's not any fun. And Stephanie, since they have him, I don't think really needs to come out there and make any sort of executive decision or announcement, unless they want to break kayfabe here, and she comes out and maybe says something about Vince, because that's one thing I am really curious about tonight on SmackDown, and I'm going to ask you guys to hook me up with some updates, and also hook me up with some likes down there. Can you hit the like button for me? Appreciate that. Hook me up some updates tonight on Twitter as it relates to SmackDown, because I am not ruling it out that they do some sort of on-air thing to Vince. He might even come out tonight. I think he's got to be smart enough than that. I can't imagine Vince McMahon coming out to the ring and having some tearful goodbye. He probably will, because he knows the audience are fucking idiots and they're going to sing his song anyway. But you still have to wonder if they're going to do something. They make this announcement right before they have a TV show tonight. So is there going to be any mentions of this on commentary? Is there going to be any small little tributes? Imagine being an announcer right now in WWE. If I was an announcer, I would be like, oh, I don't have to hear that motherfucker in my headset anymore. I got a different voice that might be just as annoying, but at least it's not that. This fucking madman. Poor Renee Paquette. Not referring to Tyson Fury as the linear champion or whatever the fucking crazy man melts down over it. That's got to be a huge relief and like a 500-pound weight off your back to know that you're not going to have somebody screaming in your headset while you're just simply trying to do your job. It's got to feel good. Got to feel good. Also, Ike, you ask, does this open the door for a Sasha and Naomi return? Probably not. I don't think Sasha and Naomi's issue was really with Vince directly. I think it was the creative plans that they had for them. Vince, of course, yes, approves these creative plans, but I wasn't under the impression that this was Vince specifically writing this situation for these women. He was presented a script, he approved it, things went on, girls didn't like it, pitched a fit, left, whatever. I don't even think Vince McMahon had a whole lot to do with it, other than the meeting they had at the end where they put the titles on his desk and left or whatever. So reading all the reports that we read about that during the time that it happened, you didn't see too much of any specific anger directed at Vince specifically. So I would say probably no. I think Sasha, her issue, like I said, her and Naomi, her issue seemed to be from a creative standpoint. And even with Vince gone, maybe a year or two from now, there's going to see some creative changes. But I think largely, it's going to remain kind of the same philosophy and doing the same dumb shit because Bruce is there. So I still think Naomi has an excellent chance to return. Sasha, not only do I think she's gone, I hope she is. I really want her to be. I want her to move on. She's had a couple of times in WWE where she's got pissed and left, and I think it's just time for her to go move on from there. So, yeah, I see Naomi still possibly coming back, but Sasha I kind of believe is gone. We'll find out. Who else should I talk to? King Bling Blah. Thank you for the $5. I'll believe it when he sells all his stock. Same man that booked his own death on TV. With Vince, everything is a work. Does Steph fire Vince on SmackDown? No, with Vince, not everything is a work. I'm sorry. That's just flat out incorrect. None of this is a work. This is all real stuff that happened. This is things that an investigation uncovered. And do you think for 1 second that Vince would really retire if he didn't do anything wrong? He retired because that was his only option. So it's not a work. It's not a work. It's just not a work. And no, Stephanie does not fire him on SmackDown. But if you remember, didn't Triple H fire him right on Raw a long time ago? Like when he had to put his arm around him and Vince, you have time to go home or you got fired or whatever. And Vince cries and he leaves or whatever. So it is kind of, it does, art imitates life there a little bit, but even with the talent in the Fightful Select article that said they'll believe it when I see it, Vince McMahon tweeted it out. You're seeing it right there. He's the proof. Just read his tweet. Talk to him. Find out. He'll tell you that he's done. So, no, I don't think any of this is a work. There's no swerve here. Just no. Super Fluffy Toaster, appreciate $2 from you. Apparently Dunn is next in line to leave from Sean Ross Sapp. Well, when did Sean say that? Is this an old story or is this something... Let me just read this one little snippet here. Okay, so let's read this latest article. This one comes from Fightful Jeremy Lambert. Brian Alvarez of the Wrestling Observer first reported that Brock Lesnar left SmackDown on Friday. The news came after it was announced that Vince McMahon was retiring as CEO. Fightful Select followed up and reported, quote, "It was confirmed to us that Brock Lesnar was slated to be all over SmackDown tonight and abruptly left. We haven't heard on if he plans on returning. Maybe he just went to go get a bite to eat. Maybe he went to Wendy's, get a Baconator. It's possible." Lesnar was advertised for the show dating back to last Friday's WWE SmackDown and has been featured in social and digital advertisements. He was advertised on WWE.com as appearing on WWE SmackDown early Friday afternoon, but is no longer advertised on the website as of now. It is unknown if Brock will appear on SmackDown. He is scheduled to face Roman Reigns at SummerSlam for the title. That's the latest there on Brock Lesnar. So that seems to be an ever-changing situation. Okay, so let's read this other article here. WWE held an all-hands-on-deck meeting this evening after it was announced that Vince was retiring. The Zoom meeting took place at 5. At one point during the meeting, it was noted Vince McMahon is, quote, irreplaceable. Despite this, Stephanie and Nick Khan will be, quote, guiding the company moving forward. So Stephanie and Nick Khan have been named co-CEOs of WWE. Vince McMahon reportedly no longer in charge of creative and is not backstage at tonight's WWE SmackDown. Wow. So Stephanie and Nick will have a co-CEO partnership. This is actually probably a pretty decent idea because Nick Khan has got the business and financial sense, and Stephanie McMahon has got, the WWE know-how. She's been a part of that creative process ever since she was in her 20s. She knows the WWE system. She knows the talent. She appears, based on all reports, that she's relatively well-liked by most of the talent. And to have that role being divided, to where Nick Khan can handle the business and the day-to-day shit, and Stephanie can be more of a focus on the on-air product is probably, the best option instead of putting one human in charge. I actually think that's probably the right call. With Triple H always also holding a high executive role in talent relations, I think this is a suitable and logical replacement plan for Vince. Wow. See what I mean about coming up here and doing a video when shit's breaking as we're speaking? It's hard, man. It's hard, y'all. Did I miss any other super chats here? Daniel Mendiola, good to see you, my friend. Appreciate $2 from you. End of an era. End of an era is indeed correct. Oh, there's a whole bunch more. Sorry, making sure. There we go. Super Fluffy, I got you. Next up, Joshua Aparicio. Appreciate $2 more from you. VKM joins the Impact Zone. Could you imagine Vince McMahon going to AEW? Maybe he wants to buy AEW. Go partners with Tony Khan. Ain't going to happen. Cal W95. What's up? Appreciate the super from you. We all crap on Vince, but wouldn't be here talking without him. Happy to see what new stars we get to see more of. Do you see any ex-WWE stars coming back? I don't think so. I don't think Vince McMahon had a whole lot of crazy direct heat with individual people to the point where it would attract people to come back. I really don't. I think it could affect initially people wanting to even do business. I don't want to sign with WWE when there's all this these changes and transition. They're in this transition period right now. Behind the scenes might not be a good time to come in with everything so discombobulated. So I think it would have more of the opposite effect at first. But we'll see. You guys probably know better than me. Off the top of my head, I can't think of anybody that's got some really serious, crazy heat with Vince McMahon. But generally, the disgruntledness among talent usually goes deeper with Vince McMahon. I don't even think Ali and Roderick Strong have really a problem with Vince per se. It's just they have a problem with the system and how they're utilized and stuff and how they're grossly underappreciated. And Vince is a busy man. He's got hundreds of people under his that work for him and need his time and shit. So sometimes it's hard to get right to him unless he did something specifically to you that you didn't like. For example, Renee Paquette, who took a lot of shit from him. So we'll see. Jay Lambo, appreciate $2 from you. This is crazy. Yes, it is. Deshaun Robinson, $5 coming in from you. Thank you, my friend. This year in wrestling has been insane, and we are only in July. This year will be one for the books. True that. One for the books is right. No, unfortunately, Oven Heart, it's not a work. Cal, 2 more from you. I mean, people coming back now, he's out of creative. Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I could potentially see people being maybe a little bit more comfortable to go back there now that Vince isn't in charge, for sure. But like I said, I still think in large part the formula and the philosophy in WWE will remain very much the same. Just some of those little things that might provide a little bit of relief to the creative team and the people who work backstage in the company. Leave Brittany alone, right? Yeah, I've been hearing the political this. Thank you for $2 from you as well. Anybody else that I have missed, I apologize. I think I've gotten everybody on the supers. Yeah, I think Cobro, you're right. A lot of people are going to be tuning in tonight to SmackDown. I am very curious as to what is going to happen there. Renee already tweeted to ask if she could get Vince on her podcast. Yeah, I know. I did happen to see that. I am curious if Vince is going to do any interviews. He might. He might want to do like a 60 Minutes interview or some major interview where he's going to attempt to improve the public's opinion of him. But knowing Vince McMahon, he's going to fail at that because he's going to be, he's not as bad as Trump, because we should give Vince a little bit of credit. At least he's not riling up a bunch of Brondo guzzling morons to storm WWE headquarters and overthrow Nick and Stephanie and Triple H, so he's not quite as bad. But every time, he tries to plead his case, he just comes off looking like a little bitch, just a whiny, bitchy, little crying asshole. And Vince McMahon has exhibited a little bit of that himself in interviews when he slapped the papers out of that one guy's hand and all the shit he did with Bob Costas. He can get real fiery because he's unstable. So, Vince might think he's going to do an interview that's going to improve his image, but it's probably going to have the opposite effect. So I don't know. I just don't know. I've never known Vince outside of the WWE world. So it just the thought of this guy just sitting on his couch, just fucking binge watching Stranger Things is a hilarious concept to me. I don't know why. But he's not going to know what to do with himself. I think he's going to have to find something to stay busy, something to keep him busy, something to occupy his time and his energy and his mind. And that could be anything. Like I said, he could go on a speaking tour or something like that. Or, start speaking at colleges on how to start a business or something. I don't know. He could do something like that. And there's still going to be plenty of people that are going to support and stand by him. Stand up for Vince McMahon. Oh, my God. And Jericho, we saw his comments, and I was just laughing because Jericho I really like. And I've always thought he was a relatively intelligent guy, but sometimes he just has this very, very basic view of things that he just doesn't understand. And he was echoing a lot of what I heard from the fans. Oh, Vince McMahon, his personality, he's going to fight like hell. He will not leave his position. I'm like, it's not up to him, and like, how can you not get this? It's all consensual. I don't see what the big deal is. You didn't read the employment agreement that was smeared all over the internet that clearly states a number of things that can have you removed as CEO, including inappropriate sexual relationships, which he did have. Like I said, they're not alleged. You don't know what alleged means if you think they're alleged, because if they were alleged, guess what? The NDAs wouldn't exist. So the fact that they're there throws your alleged argument out the fucking window and down the shitter. Doesn't matter that it's his own money. What's he paid with his own money? Doesn't matter. It was consensual. Doesn't matter. You don't know what you're talking about. He can't do these things. You simply cannot do those things as a sitting CEO of a publicly traded company. I don't understand how that's difficult to comprehend. It's a simple sentence with easy words. Everybody should get that. Doesn't matter. All these things that you think in your head. You've been so conditioned by WWE and Vince's over-the-top on-screen persona that nothing can remove him from the head of WWE. The hell it can't. Shitty fucking behavior will do it, and it did. He's retired as of today, July 22nd, 2022, and he deserves it. Keep your jackhammer in your pants, old man. You'd be head of WWE right now. Actions have consequences. Remember that, boys and girls. Who's next up here? I've got And Mr. J3352, thank you, dude, for the $5. Is AEW in trouble now that Vince is gone? Will all of Triple H talent slowly start to come back? I don't know. Another good question. There was a lot of people that were cut out from under Triple H, the big mass layoffs that were done. However, we all read the stories when those happened. What was the one name that was attached to all of those layoffs? The man who is now co-CEO of WWE along with Stephanie McMahon, Nick Khan. He's the guy that's been credited with coming in and slashing spending and costs and unloading a lot of WWE money. And a lot of these people were released unbeknownst to Triple H or without Triple H having any sort of input on it, or Shawn Michaels, all the work they were doing down there in NXT. And you have these massively large cuts. So I don't know, with Triple H being head of talent relations, I still don't know how much power he wields, because I think that people can still get cut. I still think we're going to see big layoffs. None of that's going to stop. WWE is still a business with the same business goals, and that is to make as much money as possible. So I do think that you're still going to see releases, but with Triple H now in an actual executive role, there is going to be some talent that probably would feel a lot more comfortable now going back to WWE, knowing they got an ally in an executive role. Maybe Johnny Gargano wants to take another stab and come back or something like that. I don't know. But that's a good question. I mean, I think, and I guess part of me thinks that no, it won't have much of effect on talent coming back, but it could, in a year or two, when a lot of the talent that did get released that was signed by AEW, when that contract is up, they might want to go back to WWE now that Triple H is in a position of, talent relations and can actually probably directly negotiate with them and stuff. So it's possible. It's a good way to look at it. Definitely is. I think in the end, this is a good move for WWE. I do. Oh, Jim Ross reacted on Twitter. What does JR have to say? Let's read that real quick, and then I got to actually get out of here because I got to head to work tonight, and it's going to be crazy. Wow, hell of a day. That's all he said. That's all. Yeah, a lot of people are probably pretty amazed by this. Man, it's a good thing that Vince McMahon didn't, hug one of his newly signed wrestlers. Then the company would really be in trouble. You don't want to know a tweet I saw after Tony Khan hugged Claudio? I quote, "Tony Khan is going to destroy his company by acting like that." End quote. For hugging Claudio. That's all. You're laughing, right? Because I was. All right, well, that's all Jim Ross really had to say about that. So I think as much as I don't want to, I want to keep rambling about Vince McMahon here. I actually have got to get out of here because I have got to get to work, and I've got a crazy busy weekend ahead of me. So I was already planning later on today on Twitter and here on YouTube announcing that tomorrow's podcast is going to be bumped to Sunday because I am going to be getting home very, very late tonight. I'm not going to really have time to, or I'm going to have the energy to really put together notes for a podcast for tomorrow. So we're going to bump it to Sunday instead, Sunday afternoon, because I was not planning on doing a watch along this Sunday. So Sunday will be perfect. And we'll come up and elaborate more on this. It's a crazy, crazy, crazy day. Wow. Surreal. You guys have a great rest of your Friday. Like I said, please send me updates over on Twitter as it relates to SmackDown and what is going on there. Very curious about the vibe of the show and if Brock Lesnar is on the show and if the SummerSlam main event is in big jeopardy and this guy has actually walked out of the company. Whew. Not a great day to be roaming the halls of WWE. I would be extremely stressed the fuck out. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you guys listening to me ramble for nearly an hour. Do me a favor, smash that thumbs up button out the door. Make sure you subscribe if you are not a subscriber, and I will talk to you guys on Sunday on a special Sunday edition of the Winged Eagle podcast, and we will elaborate much, much more on the entire Vince McMahon situation. You guys have a great rest of your night. Talk to you soon.